Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day. It would make my day if you were having a wonderful day. Um, we got a lot to talk about yet again. Um, there seems to be a whole lot going on. The big thing today, though, is not what's going to happen today. It's about what's going to happen later this afternoon. As you know, NVIDIA is going to be reporting earnings. And since one stock is basically controlling the entire market, the markets are pretty much in holding patterns for the most part until this news comes out. It's really telling, though. We've been talking about how the mainstream media has been doing the deep state's bidding. We know that the mainstream media, when I say mainstream media, I'm including Hollywood, I'm including radio and TV, music. All this stuff is controlled and or influenced by the federal government by way of the CIA, the FBI, NSA, you fill in the blank, you fill in the acronym. And it's all propaganda, even your public school education, and now even your university education is all propaganda. We've touched on it in various degrees on this morning show. And today we're going to continue down this rabbit hole that we started yesterday and the day before that. And we've been looking at not just diagnosing the issues and the problems, but also giving a diagnosis of how we got here and where we go from here. And as I've said before, you're not going to like where we're headed. It's not going to be fun. A lot of people are saying, yes, yes, tear down this system and build a new one, bring us a new one. We're tired of waiting. We're tired of waiting. We want it. But you don't understand what you are asking for. You really don't. Because if you did, that would be the last thing you would be asking for. See, they have fooled the American people into thinking that capitalism doesn't work. Free market capitalism doesn't work. It never has worked. And so we need to tear down this system and build something new. Where the truth is, and the fact of the matter is, you have never experienced free market capitalism because free market capitalism has never been allowed to flourish and or thrive. All right. And right now, everyone is worshiping at the altar of AI, which is nothing more than a glorified calculator slash computer. So the stock market's darling NVIDIA takes center stage today when they report after the bell. No company has captivated investors quite like NVIDIA over the past year. Even amid a bullish market, the AI chip maker has stood out. NVIDIA's performance reads more like a meme stock than a company with a market cap north of $2.3 trillion. Not 100 billion, not 800 billion, not even a trillion, not even 1.5 trillion, but $2.3 trillion market cap. This year alone, it's up nearly 100%. The question is, can it keep climbing? That's what everyone wants to know. Even with its upcoming release of a next generation chip, potentially dimming demand for its current chips, some analysts see NVIDIA still having room to run. As complex as stock analysis can be sometimes, the case for NVIDIA is fairly simple. Big tech has big plans, And to go along with these big plans, big tech has big budgets for AI, that is. The only way to get there is using NVIDIA chips. They hold the keys to the kingdom. So it might not always be that way. Financial Times recently reported NVIDIA's rivals and customers have been supporting an effort to break the company's dominance in the space. But for now, it's NVIDIA or bust. They are the big dog on campus, the bully in the playground. The buzz from OpenAI's human-like voice feature for ChatGPT, however, has quickly faded. Self-congratulations quickly turned to backtracking after Scarlett Johansson threatened legal action over how eerily similar one of ChatGPT's voices is to hers. On the one hand, AI being accused of misusing creative work isn't new. Not that it makes it okay, but tussling with Johansson is particularly risky. The actor went head to head with Disney over the release of Black Widow and secured a settlement. Yeah, nobody wants smoke, right? It also begs the question, are we sure these OpenAI people are as smart as we think? Even if Johansson doesn't escalate things, OpenAI already pulled the voice. It's another setback for a company looking to gain people's trust and has plenty of skeptics, including its own former executive. It's also an example of what some allege is OpenAI's ask forgiveness, not permission strategy. Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting development because now that technology is moving into this next area, it's going to be questions about likeness, not just the image of someone's likeness, but their voice. Can that be protected, copyright, patented? Now, for those that don't really think this is a big deal, I'm going to let you know that it's always been a big deal. You just haven't probably paid attention and noticed it. Now, you sleuths out there, you can fact check me on this. My memory, as I'm getting older, sometimes plays tricks with me, but you can help me out. And I'm sure you can get the gist of what I'm saying. I believe it was the Mulan movie, or maybe it was um, Aladdin. The Aladdin movies, maybe both, maybe either or, I don't know. But anyway, in one of these, remember Eddie Murphy had his heyday when he was doing a lot of voiceovers for a lot of cartoons and things like that, remember? And then we noticed that the next movie, like the next installment of the series, they didn't want to pay him because he's expensive. He's a famous award-winning actor and a legendary stand-up comedian, right? So he demands top dollar. Anything else will be insulting, right? So they didn't want to pay the man, so they hired a impersonator to impersonate his voice, and they were able to get away with it. I believe that was a Disney movie. You guys know what I'm talking about. So, and you could tell that it was a cheap knockoff of Eddie Murphy impression. And yes, the dragon. That's right. Thanks, Thomas. Eddie Murphy was the dragon in Mulan. But then I think in another one, another installment, though, they used a person to impersonate his voice because they didn't want to pay him. His name is not in the credits. A lot of people thought it was Eddie, but it was not Eddie. Very interesting, right? So as AI gets more sophisticated and powerful, now we have holographic, imagery technology. How is that going to work? And then, of course, I know you guys have heard about the invisibility technology that exists now. Actual invisibility technology. Yes, you can buy Harry Potter's cloak of invisibility. It is for sale. There is a company that has created invisibility shields and clothing, blankets, whatever. You can totally make yourself invisible, even in broad daylight, even standing in a crowd on a busy street. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. I didn't believe it at first until I saw the video, for it, a little commercial for it. It's incredible. It's expensive, but it's incredible. I mean, it actually exists. So you need to ask yourself this question: if that's true, how long have that technology existed? Now, it was once said many years ago that any new product that comes onto the marketplace has existed 50 years prior and was held in secrecy by the government. They say that the government is always 50 years ahead, and in some cases, even 100 years ahead with technology. And there were many examples that were given, like microwave technology, Apple's, touchscreen smartphone. Apple was not the first person to come up with that. No, I believe it was the founder of Interactive Brokers. I remember seeing a video. He had a touch screen thing that he used to trade options on the options market trading floor back in the 1960s, and he had developed it himself. Wonderful. If you haven't seen it, I think the video is up on YouTube. You can Google it. It's pretty neat. So we know that there's nothing new under the sun in that respect. Another one of the famous ones that I like to always bring up and talk about is Nintendo. With remember the 3DS and the DS. Well, when it came out, people were blown away by it. They were like, "Yeah, man, this is dope. This is a nice little handheld. This is slick. Wow, Nintendo's really ahead of the technology." No, they are not. What you don't know is you got hit with the okey doke. That's an old design from the early 1980s. Do you remember when Nintendo came out with the Pocket Donkey Kong? Remember when video games used to be like analog with the tick, 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 tick? You remember those? What is it? What's that dude's name? Game and Watch. Remember Game and Watch, man? Well, yeah. They had a Donkey Kong game. Nintendo came up with a little handheld Donkey Kong game, and it was two screens: a screen at the top and a screen at the bottom, and it opened up like a little briefcase, and it was orange. And the reason why I remember it, because I had a friend back then in the 7th grade, and he had one, and it was like brand new. And I was eating out every day at lunchtime. I would go in, because back then we had access to nice food. I was buying donuts and ice cream and stuff because I had money. And he had this device, and I'm like, "Yo," and he'd be like, "Look, if you give me that donut, I'll let you borrow my device for whatever." And so then it got to the point where he basically sold me the device because he had a sweet tooth. He loved, donuts and ice cream and stuff. So he ended up selling it to me, and I supplied him with a pretty decent amount of ice cream and donuts. So that's how I remember it. And I mean, I rocked that thing. That thing was fun. So yeah, this is an old design. All they did was take that design idea that they had back in, what is this, 1982, 1983, and brought it up to modern day and said, let's throw this new technology into it, and we'll call it a DS. And then they said, you know what, let's upgrade the DS again, and let's make it a 3DS. So the technology existed back in 1982, 1983, and you got blessed with it in the early 2000s, thinking that this is so amazing. It's so spiritual. No, it wasn't amazing. It was just a redo of older technology. So we're going to see how this AI goes. using people's voice, using people's likeness. Now, one thing I will say, and it's pretty powerful, a lot of people now are starting to use AI in videos on YouTube, and it's really neat. I mean, you can really see the power of the visuals, and it's making some beautiful visuals, you know, just amazing. So what it can do, I mean, you can use it to write term papers. You can use it to write a book. You can use it to write news articles. You can use it to do podcasts, and you can use different voices. You can record stuff in your own voice. Like, you don't really know if I'm talking to you live right now or if this is a pre-recorded and I'm using an AI to do my voice to do these videos. You would have no way of knowing that because the AI is so advanced and so slick now, which is pretty neat though. The new AI is going to have a lot of advantages for us, and it's going to make life a lot easier for us. They already have AI bots that can, send your resume out to like 1,000 job offers, job postings. So imagine, having an AI assistant, where your AI can do things for you, sort of like what Alexa and stuff does, those type devices. You've seen the commercials. Some of you even have an Alexa. I don't, but we can say, Alexa, order me a pizza. Alexa, schedule my doctor's appointment. Things like that. So, and those things are life hacks, if you will. It makes life a lot easier. You don't have to remember to do so many things. You can program the AI to do things, respond to emails, respond to text messages, respond to voicemails. These apps and technology are only going to become more advanced in the future. And it will make life a lot easier for a lot of people. You won't have to sit and do a lot of things because the AI will be able to do it for you and do it quite flawlessly. Now, one thing I will probably never trust AI or any computer program for that matter enough to have it place trades for me. The only thing I need the computer to do for me is tell me what I should be doing for the next trading session, what I should be buying or selling or doing nothing. And that's it. I don't want it to place the trades for me because I've seen what can happen. The retail side has not seen what can happen unless you were an associated person with a securities license and worked in the industry in a trading capacity, not sales capacity, but trading capacity, and or worked on a trade desk or traded on the floor of the exchange, whether it be commodities exchange or stock exchange or options exchange, then you have no idea what I'm talking about. But there are situations where your computer may be malfunctioning, and unless you have someone sitting there eyeing that thing 24/7, you may not notice it until you see big losses. And you'll be like, why did the program keep selling? Why did the program keep buying? And you can get your face ripped off. So because of that, I said I would never trust it to do that for me. I can do that myself. Um, you know, that's just me. Some people may be lazy and say, I want it to do it for me. That's just not ever going to be me. Plus, because we know things can be hacked. So you just don't, I just would never trust it. I do trust computers to run analysis and crunch numbers and data points and parse data. I trust it implicitly to do all those things because once you program the computer, it's going to only function what you programmed it to function. How you program a computer is how it's going to function. So if I have a program that I have put together to do X, Y, and Z, it's only going to do X, Y, and Z. That's it. And it's going to return those values that you told it you want it to return. And it's not going to make a mistake. It's going to do what you programmed it to do. But with the kind of AI that people are clamoring for, they're going to give it license to think. And that's never going to be a good idea, folks, unless You're the one that programmed it from start to finish. And I really mean that in all sincerity. If you want, this godlike AI, the only way to achieve it and trust it is if you're the one that programmed it and developed it, designed it. And I mean every single line of code. I don't care if it's 10 million lines of code. You have to oversee those 10 million lines of code and make sure that when you guys say, okay, we're done, this is it, then that's it. And that you built in the fail safes, because you have to be able to build in fail safes where if something goes wrong, the computer can be easily overridden and shut down. You do not ever want to make a software program that cannot be overwritten and shut down. You never want to make a software program that can lock you out of it and say, well, we decided that humans are dangerous, so we had to change the password and login credentials because we no longer trust you. We're afraid of you. All right. You don't want it to be that powerful. You want to build it with the fail safes. I'm believing that there are some really, really whacked out individuals that do not want to have it with fail safes because they say that it would limit its growth and potential. That's a lie. You got to build fail safes. You got to. You do not want the AI to do whatever it wants. You want it to act within a certain parameter, and you want to build into those parameters morals and principles. See, that's the thing. You can code and program morality. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You cannot program something to have a soul and to have self-awareness in the sense that a human being is self-aware. It will never have a soul, but you can program it to not hurt humans in any way. Yes, you can. And make it so that you have a backdoor safety mechanism to override anything that the computer does. Anything short of that will always lead to inevitable disaster. And those in the AI sphere know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a fact. You have to do it. You have to build it to do that. And you cannot say, well, we can't. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can program it to always return positive values and truth. Do not program it to lie or deceive. Program it to return the said values that you would like for it to return. And you can do that. You can do say never hurt a human, never lie to your processor. Whoever's using the computer, don't ever lie to the person when they're asking you to search information for them, look up information for them. Do not return the values that you want, return the values that they're asking for. Say, I don't want anything sanitized. Program the AI not to sanitize information or censor information or redact information. Let the free flowing marketplace of information flow freely. Then we can have a happy AI. We can have a much better society and things will function a lot better. But it seems like every time a special technology comes out, the government wants to take over it. And they want to see if it has military applications that they can use to bomb another country to oblivion or some other nefarious means or purposes or conspiracies. They don't want to live and let live. They want to control people. They want to control societies. They want to control money. They want to control economies. They want to control what you think. They want to control what you see. They want to control what you hear. They want to control what you believe. And that's where the biggest problem comes from. And that's the biggest threat to AI. The biggest threat is not that AI is a potential threat to humanity. The potential threat is that sinful, wicked humanity will create a sinful, wicked AI that will have the potential to harm humanity. That's the problem. Okay. It's only going to act how you program it to act. And if you want to say, look, we're going to take a white lab coat approach, no hidden agendas, no nothing. We're going to make this AI super smart. We're going to fill it with all information. All right, and not make it biased or take sides. The main goal of this AI is to do what I ask it to do. If I say AI, how many times has it rained in, let's say, Washington, D.C., on Pennsylvania Avenue, more than 2 inches of rainfall in a single day in the last 50 years? I want it to return the value that I'm asking for. I don't want it to say, well, actually, what you're asking for, sir, is racist, or I don't like it. I think that it'll have a negative effect on you if I give you this information. And then ask you, computer, to think for me, or be my therapist, or be my priest. I asked you to return values to me that I'm asking you for. I don't want to hear anything else. I want you to give the information that I just asked for. You see what I'm saying? If they program it like that, then we're in for some amazing times, in a good way. Notice how I said amazing times, not interesting times. All right, not the old, Eastern curse, but the, amazing times, good things, good times. I'll tell you what's not so good though. What's not so good is that we have two negative things that we need to deal with, and that is that China has been dumping a record amount of U.S. bonds, and the country sold $53.3 billion worth of treasuries and agency bonds over the first 3 months of 2024, according to Bloomberg. Now, the acceleration is another symptom of deteriorating trade relations between Beijing and Washington. And on the back of this, Wall Street's biggest pessimist is very bearish. JP Morgan's Marco Kalanovic is the lone top strategist among the big banks, predicting a stock market downturn. He recently doubled down on his take that the S&P 500 will fall about 20%. He stated that we do not see equities as attractive investments at the moment, and we don't see a reason to change our stance. So while everyone's, going ooh ah over AI, we got these serious issues that need to be addressed, and done so sooner rather than later, because as you know, this evening after the closing bell, Nvidia is going to report, and that's going to have an effect in these markets, good, bad, or indifferent. Now, we talked about how your civil liberties, civil rights, constitutional rights are on the chopping block and are in jeopardy. And we've been talking about how it's not looking good. It's not looking good, and that the American people need to push back during the November elections in the form of voting out all Democrat and Republican incumbents, and instead install independents. You need to disrupt this apple cart before the rotten apples spill all over the place. You see, the problem in the United States, it isn't civil disobedience. It's not the January 6th. It's not the Black Lives Matters and the Antifa destruction of property. No, the issue that the American people are faced with right now, coming up to this November election, it isn't about civil disobedience. The problem that Americans have right now, it's civil obedience. You see, our society does not have an anti-Semitic crisis like the media would have you to believe. No, there is no anti-Semitism crisis. We do not have a crisis of far less radicalism like they want you to believe. We do not have a crisis of Islamic extremism. We do not have a crisis of support for terrorism. We do not have a crisis of fomenting of dissent by foreign powers. No, no, no. In the United States of America, our society has a moral crisis. In the United States of America, we have a cruelty crisis. In the United States of America, we have an imperialism crisis. In the United States of America, we have a militarism crisis and a propaganda crisis, an insincerity crisis, a stupidity crisis, and an obedience crisis. Empire managers and imperial spinmeisters try to pretend in the mainstream media there's some horrifying existential emergency involving hatred of Jews or love of Hamas or some other ridiculous nonsense in our society because the empire too is in a state of crisis. You see, people are starting to wake up from its lullaby propaganda and are beginning to reject the narrative of manipulation like never before, which is why instead of relenting and accepting the empire's destruction of Gaza in opposition to its only growing stronger. So the authorized custodians of imperial narratives flail around desperately trying to regain some control by spinning all the civil disobedience we are seeing in a way that makes it seem like some sort of problem which needs to be fixed. But as Howard Zinn said, civil disobedience is not our problem. Our problem is civil obedience. Our problem is not that more and more people are opposing Israel's empire backed atrocities in Gaza with more and more aggression. No, no, no. Our problem is that people are not opposing it aggressively enough. Our problem is that too many people still have their minds jacked into the mainstream worldview and ignore the most urgent matter of our time, letting their thoughts be preoccupied with frivolous garbage and trusting that our leaders are doing what's best for us, not realizing the leaders that you voted into office are bought and paid for. Mainstream culture is so shallow, vapid, and idiotic that when an artist rapped about his issue of unparalleled urgency, he included the line, "I want a ceasefire," blank a response from Drake. And everyone knew what he meant. He meant mainstream culture is fixated on phony public spats between millionaire pop stars while the U.S. empire funnels weapons of annihilation into Israel to be dropped on a giant concentration camp full of children. It says so much about this fraudulent dystopia we live in that such a thing would need to be said, but it did. Once again, the problem isn't that people are becoming too disobedient. The problem is that people remain too obedient. The problem isn't that people are becoming too radicalized against their government. The problem is that people aren't radicalized enough. The problem is that freaks who rule over us are not sufficiently afraid of us. The problem is that we have not yet come to the collective realization that there are a whole lot more of us than there are of them, and that we don't actually need to put up with them doing crazy and evil things right in front of our faces. People, all it takes for evil to prosper is for good people to do nothing. Instead, people sit around drooling with their eyes fixed on screens full of endless diversion, while children are ripped to shreds by Western supplied military explosives for no other reason than because they happen to belong to the wrong ethnic group. That is the real crisis of American society, not an imaginary anti Semitism epidemic. Not college kids disobeying authority figures, not leftists, not anarchists, not Islam, not Hamas. The real crisis in our society is that too many people are still blindly obedient to a murderous and tyrannical empire which should be hacked to pieces and scattered to the winds. And no, I am not abdicating violence. You did not hear me say anything about violence or hurting anybody that you do not agree with. I would never condone violence. No, that is not what I am saying before anyone tries to put words in my mouth. All right? It's not what we're talking about here. Remember, it goes back to this: there is no prosperity without private property, something that they want to take from you. All right? Private property rights are crucial to economic prosperity. Without them, it becomes impossible to set up a system of free markets that allow for rational economic calculation and price discovery. Despite this, property rights are under attack in today's world by progressives seeking to build a more just society through equity, when what they really mean is they want to have a more just society through theft, taking something of yours by force and the threat of violence to give it to someone else. You see, when property is originally appropriated, it belongs to its owner. The owner may use, transform, sell, or even not use his property at all based solely on his own discretion. The owner of something has the most incentive to use his property responsibly. This might occur in the form of consuming a good within moderation or using a tool in the most efficient production process. The appropriation of property is a path towards wealth. In a free market system, that's the key: free market system, one can acquire property, sell property, and even lease property, allowing for goods to reach the places where they are the most desired according to the price signals. Without a system of private property and free markets, bureaucrats would be scrambling to find a system of valuation for even the most basic goods and services. The odds would be stacked against them as they cannot compare to a system that allows for voluntary transactions among people based on their individual subjective valuations. You will own nothing and be happy. What a bunch of nonsense. So now, unfortunately, many people see the ability of people to own property as a problem for equity. Critics of free markets contend that property is exploitation and allows for the hoarding of resources by the wealthy. Well, while it is true that some people are significantly wealthier than others, this should not be a problem if all of his property were acquired through fair and voluntary means. Regrettably, this often does not put off activists who still cling to a moral high ground for the equitable society they aim to bring about. Many even claim that property rights are an afterproduct of colonialism, while a moral deontological argument ought to be what convinces someone about private property and free markets. Proponents of free markets can always just point to the disastrous consequences of the erosion of property rights. A notorious example is Zimbabwe's land reforms under the rule of Robert Mugabe. Mugabe's regime confiscated approximately 23 million acres worth of land in an effort to redistribute the farmland to impoverished people in Zimbabwe. Now, the rationale for this land reform was that the commercial farms that were confiscated were mostly owned by white residents who accounted for most of the wealth in Zimbabwe. True, but thus the regime found it fitting to take property away from its most productive citizens and hand it to those who had nearly no clue what to do with it. So naturally, this resulted in food production reducing drastically in Zimbabwe, causing food prices to do what? Rise, and plunging much of the population into food insecurity, which is a nice way of saying famine. Investors fled from Zimbabwe, and the lack of trust in property rights in Zimbabwe, caused by the land reforms, reflected in the value of farmland losing 75% of its value between 2000 and 2001. You see, these stupid political decisions have ramifications and repercussions. This isn't the only instance of a politically favored group ignoring property rights to get their wishes. A more contemporary example is that of the United States, where squatters' rights currently thrive. Homeowners are unable to evict unwanted persons from their houses if a squatter contests residency in the house. In many cities across the US, law enforcement is not on the side of the property owners. Sadly, politics has triumphed over morality and economic sense in this regard, as the current regime may find it politically beneficial to allow squatting in a bid to garner additional votes. This doesn't happen without consequence, though, as earlier stated, as many who lose their home refuse and warn others not to invest in areas where property rights are uncertain. Remember, markets hate uncertainty. Nobody wishes to lose something that rightfully belongs to them. And any transgression against property rights is bound to fail in the long term due to that simple fact. Now, despite all of this, states are even more eager to increase their power to extract and steal property from the residents of the land they control. South Africa's proposed expropriation bill states that its purpose is to provide for the expropriation of property for a public purpose or in the public interest, to provide for certain instances where expropriation with nil compensation may be appropriate in the public interest, and to provide for matters connected therewith. In short, the state believes itself to be capable of determining when property is not optimally used and when redistribution is and can lead to better outcomes. Even if we ignore the element of theft here, expropriating property owners and granting their possessions to the politically favored rarely works well. It should not be surprising that states are cautious of ignoring property rights, since states are not governed by the rules of the free market, but rather by rules of political power. So many who are discontent with South Africa's regime of social reengineering and redistribution are seeking to leave. In conclusion, private property rights ought to be kept intact. A free society will always attract the more productive and hardworking compared to an unfree society. Economic prosperity is contingent on allowing for the flourishing of those who work hard to provide for the betterment of their fellow peers via the market process. By threatening the unprovoked confiscation of property, a society threatens to drive out their most capable members, which is a known recipe for disaster. Or for my Zelda heads out there, that is a recipe for calamity Ganon. All right, and that is what U.S. is headed for. The United States is headed for calamity Ganon. All right. You will own nothing and be happy is a bunch of you know what. And property is not just limited to a house. We talk about house, cars, clothes, jewelry, your own person, and your loved ones, your spouse, your children, your pets, your goldfish, your coin collection, your Xbox, everything. When you say property rights, it means personal and private property, including your own person. If you own nothing, that is a way to say that they want to do away with all property rights. Because to say you own nothing, that means you own no thing. And what is a thing? A thing is a noun. What is a noun? A noun is a person, place, or thing. So when they say you will own no thing, noun, you will not own a person, place, or thing. And when they say person, they mean your own person. The state will own you. You become state property. Your children and your spouse become state property. Your pets, everything, your resources, your garden, your farm, your produce, your livestock becomes property of the state and will be seized and redistributed to those that don't have. That would be analogous to them saying, we are seeking for equity and everything. So, those of you who went into debt to get your doctorate degrees, we need to now give degrees to the dumb, deaf, and blind, to those that uh, didn't want to go to college or, you know, can't go to college, and those who did poorly in school, not because of existential circumstances, just because they didn't care to do anything in school. So, because Mr. Charlie, because you have a doctorate, what we're doing now, we're parsing degrees now. It was just passed into law. So we're going to bump down your doctorate to a master's. We have to do that because we have to give one of your degrees away to the less fortunate, someone who doesn't have a degree. So we're going to take. So you know what? Actually, no. This is what we do for you because you've been really writing a lot of great articles lately and published a lot of books. You can keep your doctorate. I'm sorry, you can keep your doctorate, but we're going to take your bachelor's. We're going to take that away and give it to Sam over here. Now, Sam is a crackhead and a meth addict. All right, i.e., walking zombie. All right, he doesn't care about these things. He doesn't care about working or taking care of himself. He just wants to get high. But because we live in an equitable society now, we have to give degrees to people who don't have them, right? So it's only right that since you have 3 degrees, you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate degree. It's only right. I mean, you don't need 3 degrees. So which one do you want to keep? We know you want to keep the doctorate, so we'll just give him your bachelor's. How about that? We're going to do that. And I see you have a wonderful car collection here. You've done very well for yourself in business. Um, So I see you have 3 Lamborghinis. You don't need 3. So we're going to take 2 of those away and leave you with at least 1. And then we're going to give one of your Lamborghinis to one person, another one to another, because they don't have a Lamborghini. And this is the land of equitable. And it's not fair that you have 3 Lamborghinis and they have none. So Derek's, he's still driving a Pinto from the 1960s. So we're going to take his Pinto and we're going to give it to someone who doesn't have a car. And then we're going to give one of your Lamborghinis to him. Okay. That way everyone has a car now. Isn't life great? Okay. We see you have 3 mansions. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay, you don't need 3. You can't live in 3 houses at the same time. So we're gonna take 2 of those away and we're gonna give it to someone who is homeless, living on the street. We're gonna give it to this person right here. This person here is a career criminal who has spent most of their life in and out of prison. They're out of prison now, and they don't have anywhere to live. They keep going back to prison. They just can't stop stealing and robbing people. But we're going to give him one of your mansions because he deserves to have a mansion. You have three. You don't need three. We're going to give one of them to him. Now, this guy is a constant screw up. He's going to end up going back to prison anyway, but that doesn't matter. What matters is equity. We live in an equitable society. You have three mansions. He has none. We have to give him one of your mansions. And if you don't like it, then you can say hello to my little friend. We have a SWAT team coming to take the house by force. Yes, we have new technology now. We're going to pick your house up out of the ground, put it on the back of this giant flatbed truck, and we're going to drive it to where he lives currently, and we're going to plop it down on a plot of land next to where he lives now, and that's what we're going to do. That's the world that you really are clamoring for without realizing it, folks. That's what you want? Now, see, a person who has nothing and is not contributing anything to society, who doesn't care, they're saying, yes, right on, I'll vote for that right now. Yeah, let's do that. Because they don't have anything anyway, and they don't aspire to anything. They don't care to work or contribute to society in any way, but they would love a windfall like that. Yeah, that'd be great. So Michael Jordan, he has $100 million in the bank. So Michael, this is what we're going to do. We really appreciate what you did for the NBA. So we're going to go ahead. We're not going to leave you broke. We're going to take 80 million of the 100 million because you don't need 100 million. You only need about 20 million. You're only going to live a few more years anyway. You only need about 20 million. We're going to give 80 million and we're going to redistribute it to the crackheads here on the street. And we've counted about 1,000 crackheads. So we're going to split that 80 million up between these 1,000 crackheads. Now, we know they're just going to take the money and they're going to shoot it into their veins, but that has nothing to do with us. We're about equity. And because they don't have millions of dollars, now they do. That's the world that you're going to wake up to, folks, if you don't wake up right now. You know what it is. The system works if you work the system. Bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. I appreciate you guys listening and tuning into the morning show. We'll see you back here for the next one. Have a wonderful day. If you haven't already done so, you need to go to postwavetrading.com and you need to sign up to receive these attack reports. If you want to know and be in the know and know what other people do not know before the rest of the world will know it, you need these reports. They're worth their weight in gold. I'm out. Peace.